So, welcome to St. Mary's Life Stories. This is a very special one because we have our own John Ladroga. Thank you for sitting down with us. Not only this is a special interview, but this is a special moment to have this interview because soon we're gonna have not just John Ladroga, but we're gonna have Deacon John Ladroga. John, tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your family, where you grew up.
Actually, I've been in Holden for most of my life. I lived in Leominster for a little while until I was about 12, but we moved to Holden in 1977, and we've been here in Holden and members of St. Mary's ever since then.
Yeah. So, where did you met Linda? How that happened?
We met in college back in the mid-'80s, and she was studying to be a medical assistant, and I was studying for business administration. And we met in 1985, and we got married in 1988, right in Worcester at the Cathedral. And we were fortunate enough that my dad was able to perform the ceremony, and so I got to be married by my own dad.
Well, that goes to another question, John. Do you remember your dad becoming a deacon?
I do, yeah. I was about 12 or 13 years old when the event happened. And again, it was in Worcester at the Cathedral. And I think I remember most vividly, there's a moment during the ceremony where the candidates lay flat on the floor. They lay prostrate on the floor before they're ordained. And being kind of young and not really knowing what was to come about, there were quite a few members in his class. And to see them all laying across the floor, typically you don't see people laying down in church. So it was kind of a strange thing, but it's one of those things that has stuck with me for over 40 years now.
Did your dad explain you what he was doing?
Somewhat. We knew that he was going to school, and back then the diaconate was something that was very new. He was in the first class of ordained deacons here in Worcester County, so it was very new. So we didn't have any background to go on, but we knew that he and my mother went to classes together, and they did that for several years. So they tried to explain as much as they could to us about the program while we were growing up. So we had a basic understanding, and then once he was ordained, we got to see a little bit more of the responsibilities and the gifts that the diaconate brought to not just to our family, but to the church as well.
Can you share with us like a couple of memories of how was your life in church growing up?
It was actually wonderful. We were a very, I'd like to say, faith-filled family. We went to church as a family up until the kids started growing up and moving away. Again, we started in Leominster, and most of us were involved in some ministry or whatever. My brothers and I were all altar servers. I think my sister was in the choir, and as we got older, we moved into being lectors and Eucharistic ministers. My mother, my father, siblings. So it was actually quite a family affair, again, until people started growing up and moving on their own way.
What was your favorite thing?
My favorite thing. I guess that's kind of hard to say. I guess it would depend on what part of my life and how old I was at the time. But again, church was always something that we did as a family. And I think a lot of times it was kind of fun because after church, a lot of times we would go out to eat. So when you're a little kid, you're thinking, okay, even though I'm here at church, we're going to be going to McDonald's later, or we're going to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, or we're going to go someplace for dinner. And but obviously, as you get older, those priorities tend to change a little bit.
Mm-hmm. When did you realize that you were connecting with God in a different way than other people?
Oh, for me, it was very young. Growing up in the 70s as I did, my parents were also involved in called the charismatic movement. So as a family, we used to go to these prayer meetings up in Andover, and they invited all of us kids to go with them, and some of us went, some of them didn't. And for whatever reason, I just always felt connected there. I always felt like I belonged there. The music was great, the fellowship was great. The people were very inclusive of all age groups, and I just found that it was a great place for a young person to be able to express their faith without feeling ostracized or picked on because, oh, you believe in this or you believe in that. So for me, it was very young, and I look back at those days with very fond memories.
Well, so that was very freeing in that sense. Like, you were free to express your faith
Mm-hmm.
in a very encouraging and protective community.
Yep.
That's amazing. Can you explain to us, how was your journey towards kind of like feeling called and discerning diaconate?
Well, that happened over several years. There had been times early on where I thought there was a calling, and I didn't do anything about it. And then about 10 years ago, I had seen the information in the bulletin again about an information session for diaconate. So my wife and I went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Worcester for the information session. We sat through it. They talked about more specifically what to expect in the program. But at the time, our girls were still at home, and after we understood the amount of time that would be expected to be involved in the classwork and the formation, at the time it just wasn't the right fit. And again, just over 5 years ago, once again, that voice kind of came back in my head again, saying, maybe it's time to look into it again. And it just so happened that 2 weeks later there was another information session. So we went back and we sat through that one, and the feeling was different. The girls were grown and had moved out, and Linda and I just talked it over and decided that now feels like the right time. So it's been just about 5 years since that day, and we really truly feel that it was the right time. I look back and think, gee, if I had started years ago, I could have had that many more years of ministry, but it just wasn't right at the time. So we feel that this is the right time.
And it's beautiful that you recognize that journey. For those who don't know, because I bet that there's a lot of members of the community that don't know, what is deacon?
Is somebody who serves. I mean, literally the word itself, comes from the Greek diakonos, which means to serve, and that is our true responsibility and our calling to the church and to the people, is to serve them in whatever capacity that would require. Obviously, each parish has its own needs for what role that the deacon will fill, but it's really just to be there for the people and to serve them in whatever way the parish needs. I mean, obviously we have our specific liturgical roles that we can do and our certain ministerial roles that we can do, but it's really just to be there for the people and to serve.
And I know that people sometimes don't understand that you are different than, let's say, a priest, but you're ordained.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between a priest and a deacon in that sense?
Well, I think there are several, and I used to make the mistake when I was a kid when people would ask me, your dad's a deacon, what's that? And I would say, well, it's one step below a priest, but it's really not. I mean, there are transitional deacons that then go on to the priesthood, but for those that are ordained to the permanent diaconate, again, it's more just a role of service where we have certain sacraments that we can participate in, baptism, matrimony, for people in the church, but obviously there are much more pastoral roles that the priest takes care of, and that are part of his ministry and part of his calling. So it's kind of hard to really put a list of this is what they do and this is what we do, because there is some overlap, but really the deacon's role is to serve the priest as well as the parish.
But the diaconate is very old, right?
Absolutely, yes.
It's been here since the beginning of the church, in a sense.
Yep.
So it's not something that we invented.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we have kind of like valued.
Correct.
More as we grow up as a church.
Mm-hmm.
And we will appreciate. What do you hope for your diaconate life?
Again, I hope just to be able to make a difference. I hope to be able to utilize the gifts that God has given me to serve the parish and serve the community as well, because it's not just in the church itself. It reaches all parts of the community, all parts of society, and you never know where the ministry is going to take you, and you just have to let the Holy Spirit guide you in that direction and be open to the call and say, okay, wherever you need me to go, that's where I'm going to go.
And in a sense, you don't belong to a parish, you don't belong to a diocese, you're a deacon of a church. So in a sense, you belong to the universal church in a sense, right?
Absolutely. And just in that sense, I am so blessed to be able to be assigned here at St. Mary's, but it's kind of a running thing that as a deacon, you serve at the pleasure of the bishop and at the direction of your pastor. And because the needs of not just the universal church, but the diocesan churches change, deacons do move, from location to location as the need arises. So I'm absolutely aware that even though I'm blessed to be here on my initial assignment, I could be sent anywhere at any time, and that you just have to accept that as part of the call.
And you're a deacon for life.
Yes. Yep.
That's it. Like, it's not that, I'm going to be a deacon for 20 years or 10 years or something like that. This is it.
Yep.
This
Just like baptism. You only get baptized once, you only get ordained once.
So, this will change your life.
Absolutely. It already has. But luckily, it's been a long 5 years and it's been a short 5 years, but I think the 5 years is necessary because, the discernment process, even though they consider it early in your formation, is always happening. You're always discerning not just what is going to be now, but what road is going to take you down as you get closer to ordination. And I'll be discerning for the rest of my life, to put it that way.
Yeah. And we as the Mary's community are very lucky to have you and to be witness of your journey, because not every faith community get to be a witness of a deacon in formation that belongs to their own community, and then being blessed to see them in the first years of his journey, which we are going to be able to enjoy from your vocation. So in that sense, I think that St. Mary should consider a very lucky community to be a witness of something like that. And we need to acknowledge that in your journey of faith, in your family, in your life, if you think about the most joyous day in your life, what would it have been?
Well, I think a lot of people may, resort to, the day I was married, the day my kids were born, but I think in retrospect, those days seem like they're always filled with so much anxiety and so much planning and so much focus on what is happening that day, that a lot of times you don't truly get to experience the joy. I mean, I guess if I look back, the most joyous days I've had are days that you don't expect. You're on vacation with your family and everything just kind of lines up that day, and you end up having a great day where you maybe weren't expecting it, or just those type of simpler events that, again, don't start out the way you expect but finish just filled with joy, and they end up having the type of memory that tends to sit with you longer. Because I mean, I do remember my wedding day and the birth of my kids, but they were very frenetic and they were very wrapped up in all the details of logistics and being in the right place and doing this and doing that. So it was really hard to find the joy at the time in that. So I would say it's the more simple events.
That sounds a bit like kind of like looking the harmony and the peace of God in action in one of your moments in life, right? Have you witnessed? Could you say that you have witnessed the action of God in your life?
Oh, without a doubt. And again, it's always in those small moments when you're not looking for it. I think the old saying is God is in the details. So sometimes you're looking big picture, the smaller things tend to get brushed aside or overlooked, and it's not until you have the benefit of retrospect and you can look back on it that you realize that it wasn't the huge things, it was the small things, and it was the little details and the small gestures that people make that truly make a difference. And I think that's that is God at work, showing you that it's that He is everywhere. He's not just in the big events. He's in every little aspect of your life.
Amen to that. And maybe this conversation might spark some curiosity to other men
Mhm.
who might have, for an instant or for a second, seen the 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 service of the diaconate as something that is a bit attractive for them, but they're kind of like in the sideline or still thinking about it. What would you say to a man who is contemplating diaconate?
Answer the call. I mean, the beauty of it is, it's not as if you answer one day and you're ordained the next. It takes a long time. The whole purpose of stretching it out over time is to make sure that you are right for the diaconate. The diaconate's right for you. It's right for you, for your family, for your wife. You know, there's a lot of steps that happen along the way that can help you to discern, to decide whether or not it's the right thing or not. And there's no other way to find out than to go and sit down at the information session, get an idea of what's involved, have your wife come with you, talk about it with your family, and make it an event that encompasses everybody, because it will affect everybody. So, but if the call is there, again, answer it. You're not signing anything on the first day that says you're locked into anything. So, and you'll never find out until you go.
And it's beautiful that you say, the word family, because different from, for example, priesthood, the diaconate involves the whole family.
Absolutely, yes. Matter of fact, my wife went to many of the courses with me that she could, and the other candidates' wives came with them as well. They became friends with each other, so they have that other community of people that now they're connected with. So it truly is, and for those that have young children, it helps for them to be involved with the kids, like I was with my dad, at least knowing where they were going, twice a week for a couple hours at a time. Why are they leaving? So because you are going to spend some time away from your family that you weren't before, because the ministry does call for time, but as long as you start it with your family and continue it, just becomes a natural progression in everybody's life.
So we are right to say that on the day of your ordination, you are ordained together with Linda.
Absolutely, yes.
So Linda is part of the package of the diaconate. What do your dad and your mom have to say about your decision?
Oh, they're thrilled, and they've been tremendously supportive. And my dad has been an incredible encyclopedia of knowledge for me with over 40 years experience. He's been able to be one of my mentors when I've had questions or whatnot, to reach out and ask him, what do you think about this and how do you feel about that? But he's also been very good about saying, you're going to find out, you're going to find your own path, you're going to learn things on your own. So even though I can help you a little bit, it's really going to be your journey, and it really should be your journey. But it's been an absolute blessing to be part of, to have this in my family already.
Yeah. And for all those who are interested, we will post the link to John's ordination, so you can watch it online and join John in that important day. What do you want to ask the community during these days?
Just pray for me, because as much as I have enjoyed this, it's every day is new. So I don't know where God's going to send me, what He's going to ask of me. So I ask for your prayers that I have the wisdom to accept what I'm asked to do, and that I have the capability to be able to do it. So just please pray for me.
And that's a beautiful request. Thank you for sitting down with us, and we surely will be praying for you.
My pleasure.